Hi, I'm Eric Mieni, and this is Breaking New Ground, where we try our very best every week to explain South Africa's housing strategies. Since the show started, we've looked at apartheid and post-apartheid problems that our government's housing solutions must solve today. We saw, for example, how apartheid spatial planning and the high influx of people into the cities impacts on housing delivery. We then looked at the housing solutions themselves. We looked at RDP housing, which I'm sure you are very familiar with by now. We also looked at in situ upgrading, where the government improves informal settlements without moving the residents. We also looked at the people's housing process, where the government helps people to build their own houses. These are just 3 of the 9 housing solutions that we have so far. All of these housing solutions are designed to create integrated living areas where the rich and not so rich can live side by side and have easy access to community facilities like hospitals, schools, and parks. But is this housing strategy really working? We've come to Durban, the home city of the Minister of Local Government and Housing and Traditional Affairs, Minister Mike Mabuya-Kulu, to answer that question. But first, here's a visual recap of some of the housing solutions we've shown so far.
In 1996,
it took time to actually design a policy framework which would allow rapid delivery. It took time to implement that. But within 2 or 3 years after 1994, the country started to deliver at rates which were in line with the targets that it had set itself.
engathola ngo-2007 ngoFebruary. So ngajabula ukuthola le ndlu lena ngoba inkulu, inama-bedroom ayi-2, ine-bathroom, ine-dining room, ine-kitchen.
This is his city. Sithe masifika lapha sathola uvelna uyena ke oye wasacela indawo kuyena wathi ya ikhona indawo yokuhlala baye basithatha ke basibonisa ukuthi kuphi lapha esizofika sihlale khona.
Social housing started in Europe, Norway, England, Germany, places like that, to provide housing for poor people and people on low income who needed decent accommodation. And it translates quite nicely to South Africa, where there are a lot of people who aspire to move out of poor living conditions into better, good quality housing at affordable rents.
Iyenye family apha, iyenye family apha, iyenye family apha. Nabantwana ke sihlalo hlobo ibhezi lala kuyo le. Yayimekwe ebuhlungu kakhulu, eyayingamkeleki. Ngoba kwangekho imfihlo. Uba siyalala sasiqhinela amalapha kule ndawo. Sibophe apha senza into yakuthiwa yimediadiya. Yayilo meko ke makazanifikeleke kuyo apha.
The participative process at Ilingi Labahlali is quite successful in the sense that as the City of Cape Town, we had to provide some workshops with the residents so that they could be able to take some important decisions, especially around the development options.
PHP is a viable housing strategy in cases where people want maximum involvement in the process, where they want to get something more than just the house out of it, where they want to influence the design, or where they want to influence the quality, or perhaps manage the process. It can be very empowering for people, so lots of people become involved because they want to develop through the process of building the house.
Ke statile ka stena ho duba daka le ge ke fufulelwa ke lapa mara at least go bofelo ke gone o tsena ka mogara ntlo re sa lebella ntlo fela mo mokgatlhong re lebelletse dilo tse ngata mokgatlho o re thusa ka dilo tse ntšhi not ka ntlo fela.
Bendizwendonwabe kakhulu. Bendingenayo ingqondo ukuthi ndizawuhlala njani kubamelwane onjani ngoba mna ngokwami ndizithembile ukuthi ndiyabathanda abanye abantu.
It's important that you ensure that within the development these different communities can share certain facilities, things like schools, crèches, playgrounds. You know, if you start having the children playing together, you force their parents to come together to the playground, and therefore the playground becomes a sort of a platform where these different communities can engage.
This is the original flat that we had, and we moved into it. It was small. It consists of 2 bedrooms, a small lounge, a small kitchen, and toilet and bathroom in one. And we really appreciate it because it was a roof over our head.
We've put together a policy that actually starts to assist us to phase out the old housing stock, and where beneficiaries can derive the benefit of current subsidization to ensure that the housing becomes their own, so they get full title of the housing. In addition to that, we want to make sure that the beneficiaries are able to take responsibility for the houses that we now can transfer into their names.
Internationally, in situ upgrading of informal settlements really refers to improving the lives of informal settlement dwellers where they live. And that starts off with securing their tenure, which is preventing or taking away the risk of eviction, and then dealing with other risks such as health risks by improving the sanitation, providing water, improving the shelter.
Njengoba kuyi-24 zika-December, so ke kwaba intokozo enkulu kimi, and as a present futhi njengoba ku-December kanje, kusho ukuthi ngathola i-present enye ngiphinde ngikhohlwe engayiphiwa ugovernment ukuthi asakhele izindlu. So ngajabula kakhulu, and ngiyazi ukuthi kuyoba ikusasa labantwana nezizukulu kanjalo kuzoba ikhaya elifudumele ngendaba nje yokuthi sathola usizo ku-government ngoba besingakhulu.
Government has really been getting their thoughts around how best to implement changes in the backyard rental market. Work has been put into trying to assist in formalizing relationships between landlords and tenants, and a lot of work is now going into trying to assist local governments to find ways of facilitating the growth of all types of backyard rentals in their areas.
Lendlu le 31 square meters ningangena nizoyibona. Le room leli li 11 square meters libuye linezinki namanzi. Ishawa yami ngelena engezela kuyo. Into engiyengayenza ke ngafaka umbane ngoba nginabantu abahlala la emarumini.
Welcome back, and thank you for watching Breaking New Ground. My guest today is the Minister of Local Government and Housing and Traditional Affairs in KZN. Minister Mike Mabuyakhulu, welcome to the show. One of the most exciting programs within housing is the People's Housing Process, where people actually get help by the government to build their own houses. Now, I guess the question would be, when will the total budget for housing be split so that you know specifically which money is going to which area?
We actually have promoted the People's Housing Process in many ways through the many projects that we're undertaking in many urban cities, as well as in rural areas where we're delivering houses in this province. We have encouraged the People's Housing Process to be the model. And I can safely say that in our annual expenditure of housing in KwaZulu-Natal, close to between 35% to 40% of the housing delivery mechanism is through the Housing People's Process. I am happy that we can increase the government's allocation of resources to the People's Housing Process to more than 50% of the budget.
Somebody could argue that the government is sort of relinquishing responsibility. The government should actually do this. Why are they making me do it myself?
We're not building a passive citizenship. We're not building a nation where people want to actually wait for the state and the state to do for themselves. It's not a welfare state. It is a developmental state where the nation itself contributes into becoming the masters of their own destiny.
In situ upgrades. One would argue if you are improving some informal settlements exactly where the residents are, why move others?
Anyone who has visited an informal settlements would know that houses are close to one another, so much so that there isn't any space for you to roll out infrastructure such as your sewer system, such as your water pipes and many other things that would actually require. The space is definitely not there to accommodate everybody. In our own in-settlement upgrading system policy, which is national policy, we actually have said the first priority is to locate our people in areas that are close to economic centers. And therefore that because we want people to be in proximity to economic hubs, where it is possible and the land is possible for us to upgrade settlements, we would do so.
Yeah. Now, rental stock. There's been some problems where people are renting something and thinking they'll buy it later. Is this a communication problem, you think?
Well, I think it is a communication and an education process. Not only those who are in the rental stock, they should be educated about their rights, about what they're entering into, but also generally that consumers in the housing sector should also be educated, including that when we're actually giving a house, you must know that a house is a lifetime and a capital asset.
This is most important in, obviously, RDP housing, the transfer of stock of the old townships as well.
It's very crucial. One of the things we're doing, for instance, through the Enhanced Extended Discount Benefit Scheme, which allows us to transfer the stock that was owned by the state. We want to simply emphasize this policy, that what we are concerned about as government is not somebody whom was originally given the house to rent, who no longer is using it because that person, he or she, does not need that asset. It is about someone who's currently occupying that asset, who may be currently paying rent on that asset, that we would want to give options to those who really have got need for housing.
On that note, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion and then take some of your questions and see how the minister will answer them. Welcome back, and thank you very much for watching Breaking New Ground. If you've just joined us, we are talking to Minister of Local Government and Housing and Traditional Affairs here in KZN, Minister Mike Mabuyakulu. Now, Minister, at last count, I had about 9 housing solutions that the country is busy with right now. Why so many?
Once we have got different milieu of housing provisions, you allow South Africans, in the first instance, to be able to be accommodated as per their needs. It has been proven through the Breaking New Ground that the question of the synergies and the integration that we've been able to come up with in the process of delivering these milieu of housing options, it indeed has increased the appetite on the part of the consumers for the housing delivery. Primarily because there is a bigger consumer base out there that is yearning for this, the government is just only responding to it.
Well, there are a few questions that our viewers had for you, so we'll just play them one after the other and maybe you can answer them for us.
My name is Timothy Dugane. I live here now 5 years. I live here in the Czech. The area is Richview, Mkumbane. Yes. To live in the squatter camp is bad because it's dangerous to live in the Czech because it's burning, using the candle, paraffin, maybe the other people using the gas. The gas is dangerous to keep in the house. This Czech is a member of the committee, Zazingobo. It's burning this morning. I think it was 12:30. I tried to get the water to stop him. I phoned the fire department, but he came out. I think it was half an hour. He came in to help us to stop the fire. Some of us, I think 5 people last year in November, you get a house. So my question, why did the project or house take long time to get in the people who suffer like this to stay in the Czech? That's why I want to know why it's taking long time to get the house.
This is a recurring question as we travel around the country.
In the first instance, let me say this. I have very great empathy with Timothy. 2 things that we're doing as government to deal with this issue, particularly not only in KwaZulu-Natal but elsewhere in the country. The first one is that we have made a commitment of eradicating slums by 2014. So in KwaZulu-Natal, we're the first province in the whole country that has introduced a legislation which is the prevention of the re-emergence of slums. What that legislation says, it says all our municipalities are now given 6 months to be able to audit and quantify the informal settlements, to tell us their state and the condition that exist, and that our law now enjoins the municipalities that where people do not have access to ablution facilities, that we do have temporal provision for this. But also that our law then prevents the re-emergence of new slums. Because for Timothy and others who have been living there for 5 years, for them to get proper housing, I need to know how many people in his informal settlements that are there. But we request them to be able to partner with us and to say no to the re-emergence of new slums.
Yeah. Well, let's take another question.
Right, Mr. Bongikosi Zondo, I'm a community member of this Ward 29. I'm staying here in the Fast Track West area. So if you are here, we are so happy because it's so many things that you're going to see what our problem around us. They brought us a very poor material, such as the door. Even there were not enough inspector to check all the houses. So other houses got no lintel. That's why it's breaking on top of the flame. So now we need government to come back and recheck what was happening in this project, because even the sewer is on top. Even the passages is not good. Everything here in this project, it gives us a problem. So now we are expecting some more budget to reconstruct these houses. Oh, my question to government, when it will come back, because we did many pleading to the government to come back and revisit this place, our fast track area, and then in this Ward 29, because to check what is that project run right. So now we think we'll find the answer after time. We got a hope. So that's what we think, and that's what we are questioning.
Well, let me say this. I'm actually pained by what I've just seen. In a situation where the house is like this due to poor workmanship, there is a national policy that the contractors that we are using should actually be registered with the National Home Builders Council, the RPC. Secondly, then there's a requirement that if the house would actually be in such a state before the 5-year period, which therefore allows a warranty for a person like this, for the construction company to take responsibility. We think that if it is due to poor workmanship, we will follow up on this matter. It's a pity that I've just only been made aware of it, but we will send a team that will go there specifically to look at what may be the causes of that. I'm hoping that if it is due to poor workmanship, definitely the construction company that build those houses must take the responsibility to go there and to rectify those houses at their own cost. Because as government, there's no way we can tolerate poor workmanship.
Now, what would be the process for a beneficiary who got a house like that? Does he go to the local municipality? Where does he go? What is his recourse?
Well, I must say that if your house is in this state and you are in it and we're still within 5 years, you have recourse to come back to, you can go to a municipality to report the matter, but you can go to any of our regional offices in housing in KwaZulu-Natal.
Well, let's take the next question.
Hi, my name is Bongiwa Mkhize. I'm staying in Chesterville, and I've been living here for 27 years. So this is a family house where we're staying with our aunts and my cousins, my mother, my father. My family started living here in 1943, and there were 11 people staying in the house. So the family grew up, and we split it. Some of them went to stay in Mayville, Pinetown, and because they wanted to come home where it's closer to town, they all came back, and then we built shacks outside. Now we are 19 in this family. 19 of us are staying in the same yard, and we're sharing the cost of electricity and water. We're having a problem with our shacks. When it's raining, the water runs through inside the house. The floods, like yesterday, we had a problem when we had a heavy rain. We had to run around 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. Like we had to share the room at night, sleeping in the dining room, in the kitchen. So it is too bad for us to live in. My question is that are you going to build new houses for us here at the backyard or make our house bigger so it will accommodate all our families?
Well, let me simply say this. This is, as you know, Eric, not a KZN-based problem. It's a national problem. That if you take our old townships, such as the township of Chesterville, which is an old township of the 1930s when it was built, you would find that primarily because of the limitation of the space in those areas, in that township, it's not possible for us to be able, for instance, in the first instance, to assist people to build and to expand in their own existing homes. But in addition to that, you would find that out of the 19 people who may be living in there, each one of them qualifies. If you are 21 years and older and you are a South African citizen, you qualify to come forward and for government to assist you on a subsidy.
Yeah. On that note, we want to take a short break. Please stay with us. This is Breaking New Ground. Welcome back to Breaking New Ground. In today's episode, we're doing a review of all the housing options that the government has for you that we've looked at over the last few weeks with Minister Mabuya Kulu here in KZN.